Hey guys, Dwayne here. Today I want to talk a little bit about how they get away or feel like we feel they get away with everything. One thing that you're going to go through with this is going to be the frustration that it seems like we're the ones who are always jumping through hoops, trying to deal with the problems, deal with the trauma, while they're basically not being held accountable and not really, I don't know, I mean, you could even say they're not even pulling their fair share. And it can be incredibly frustrating because it's not fair, right? I mean, it's one of those things where we're trying to deal with this, we're trying to do the best we can, and it seems like there are no consequences for them. No matter what they do, they don't seem to have to pay for it. Whether it's in court, whether it's with other people, whether it's even with our own children, it seems like they get a pass on everything. Now, I've talked before about how this has a lot to do with perspective. Getting through this has to do with the way we change our own view on things to deal with it. But there's a couple of phases of this. The first part of it is before you get to that point, you are going to be incredibly frustrated. I do not know how many times I got so angry because this is during the court part of it, because I was being forced to jump through, like flaming hoops to get information, to respond to their requests, to provide the documentation that they were looking for. And there were times where I fought back with my attorney and I'm like, forget that. I'm not going to do it. It was like, I remember one point it was like, well, what are the daycare costs? And I'm like, she can get the daycare costs. She knows where it is. She knows where they're going to go. She can go get it. Why do I have to go get it? All it was a tactic on their part in that particular situation, just to make me get more information, to make me have to struggle and to just create more time, right? To run the clock out. And that's one minor example, but it's like, I'm sure you guys can look at it and you'll see things with homework not being turned in. And since they're not responsible, they don't get held accountable. I mean, it really doesn't impact them. Bills come up. If you're in this situation like I was in, where you're the one with the job and the one who needs to maintain your job, and so these things start flying at you, and you're really frustrated with it. Now, so the first part of it is you're just stuck in this constant state of anger because they do not seem to be being held accountable or responsible for their actions, and you are, right? So then what happens is you finally get tired of it. You finally realize that being in this constant state of anger doesn't help you, right? It just keeps you stuck in this mode, in this frame of thinking that just doesn't do anything good for you, doesn't do anything good for your environment. And you finally get to the point where I've talked about before, where you get to the point where you're not going to allow that person to control you anymore, and you try to take your power back, or you do take your power. You take your power back. It's not that you try; you actually do it. But the thing with it is, when you get to that point, it'll actually feel pretty good, right? Because when the shenanigans are happening, that's not going to get to you, and you're gonna be okay with it. You're gonna it's not really going to impact you. You're going to kind of ignore it, and you're going to be focused on what you're working on, your little improvements and your micro improvements, and that will help you. That will help you deal with it. The problem is that stuff is always lingering under the surface, and depending on what is happening in your life at the time is going to determine how you ultimately respond to it. And what I mean by that is, for example, let's say, like in my situation, She doesn't work. It's been 6 years now. Granted, she is going to school, which that'll come into another topic here in a minute. But it took 4 years or 4 years, 3 years, 2 years. I'm trying to remember what the time frame was. Probably 3 years for her to actually start going to college. And so during that time, well, and even since then, even when she did start going to college, anytime finances got really tight, or I wasn't able to do something, or I wasn't able to pay for a procedure, for a medical thing, even for myself, or just juggling the bills. When you start getting really stressed, that thought of how do they get away with everything can creep back into your head. So you have to be aware that at times of stress and frustration, that thought has a strong possibility of coming back. Now, it's not going to be as bad as it was in the beginning stages of it, but it's still going to flare up from time to time. And there's a bunch of different triggers that can make that happen, and probably either most of us who are hearing this right now can relate to it. Either you're going through it right now, or you experienced it, or you can think about it and go, oh yeah, no, I remember. And it could be, it could be any type of different thing. It could be not simple, but it could be accommodating time, right? Maybe you have bent over backwards to adjust to them running late or wanting to change the drop off or whatever. And then you turn around and you ask for basically an accommodation and they go, no, because they can, right? And then again, that can cause it to flare up to think, well, wait a minute, what is the deal? I mean, I'm the one who's always, why do I always have to do that, right? And you can be resentful from it. I think the thing that to remember on that is if you're in the beginning stages of it, you're going to be able to wrap your head around it and let some of that anger go, right? When you finally wrap your head around that you do not want to give them the power anymore, that you don't want to allow them to be able to control your emotions, your main tool on that, your main way of dealing with that is by deciding that you are not going to react. And so that's the first part of it, right? So that is something that you will be able to get to. And I'll tell you guys, whenever you get to that point, it feels pretty good, right? Because when they're doing their stuff, you're focused on your life. And once you get a rhythm in and things are basically going pretty good. And for the most of us, I think once we can get over that anger, we can actually find some positives, or a lot of positives in our situation, and things we can be grateful for, and we can look at the situation and take an objective look at it and think and realize that our situation right now is actually a hell of a lot better than it would be if we were still with the person. Even with everything we've lost, and even with all the trauma, it's like just knowing that person does not have the constant physical daily interaction to manipulate you is huge, okay? But you are still going to run into times where you're going to get wore down, you're going to get tired. The reality of the situation of what you did lose in comparison is going to weigh on you, and it's going to bother you. And then what's going to happen is those thoughts will start flaring back up. It even happens to me. There's times where, I've talked a little bit about it in the last week or so, where a lot of the things that have happened with, especially with my oldest, is kind of like brought that back. It's like you look at everything and all the time, and it can be frustrating. But if you can recognize what's going on and you realize what's happening, and you can rationalize it within your own environment to say, okay, why am I so frustrated with it? Now you can get angry and say, I'm frustrated because this person did this. Well, it's more than likely because you're run down, you're tired, you're stressed, and you're frustrated. And I mean, we all know in the back of our head that if this person wasn't in our life, that pocket of stress wouldn't be in our lives anymore, right? I mean, it'd probably be something else, but right now we can tangibly say that they are inputting a significant amount of daily stress into our lives, which is true. But the point is that if you can look at it and you can say, okay, all right, I know that when I get some rest and I can take a pause and take a breather and get myself relaxed, maybe do some of my mantras, or maybe listen to some meditation or whatever it is, that I'll get back on track and this won't bother me anymore. So I just wanted to touch base on that because I know that this is an issue that I struggled with a lot whenever I was in the early stages of this. And I know you guys are going through the same thing because it's inevitable, right? It is. And I just wanted to let you know that it does get easier over time. And even if you have a backslide, it's just temporary. And as soon as you can get yourself back on track, you'll feel better about the situation and you'll realize how good things really are. One of my older videos, I talked about enumerating and writing down some of the positives. And that's where this stuff's critical. So that way you can look at what you're grateful for or what you're happy about or what is the good in your life, and just to remind you of the victories and the little victories that you have made. So whenever you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling like they're getting away with bloody murder, you can take an objective look at your situation and realize that you are still better off than you were before. And that you still have the opportunity for things to get better on a daily basis. And as time progresses and their level of control and influence over you, typically with family court and child support and custody issues, every day their influence and impact over you reduces. So, okay. So on that, if you want to talk a little bit about some of the issues and frustration you've had feeling like your ex is just continually getting away with everything, leave it in the comments below. If you've actually had some successes on this where you've been able to look at it and you realize that even though they are, what the benefits to you are, leave those in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, please subscribe. And I will talk to you on the next video. But before I go, tomorrow or today, I typically would do a live stream. I am probably going to be out of town. I don't know if I'm going to be, if I can get back to the studio in time, I'll do a live stream, but I'm going to be in a couple hours away in a different town. And that's going to complicate travel time and stuff like that. So if I'm here, I'll do it. Probably like a 50-50 chance that I'll be able to do the live stream, maybe even a little bit less. But if I do do it, I'll see you on that. The reason I didn't do a live stream this weekend is my internet completely jacked on me and I didn't have the bandwidth to actually do it, which was frustrating. So anyways, on that, I will talk to you guys later. Take care. Bye.